Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell on the side so once we have all the updates and news, be the first one getting all the insight. Now, today's topic that I want to discuss about is how we have ended up here, how the history of, well, not history, but the recent years of Australian migration, how we got here. Obviously, we are on almost to the end of 2023. Just so many global events going on every day, and that's striking effectively on the change and the change of the migration policies and affecting on every one of us, obviously on the viewer and the fans that you're watching this channel. So I would like to take a little bit of history lesson and have a talk about how the recent years of the past 10-15 years, how it has formed the current policy and how it would actually, well, the reason I wanted to do this is because often I look back to the policy of the past and how it will direct me and direct everybody in predicting and estimating, including all the new elements to be included in with the geopolitical issues nowadays. So then we can see how the nation of Australia will go and predict how the visa policy will likely to be. I've done a similar video previously. I forgot when, probably last year somewhere. But obviously 2023 is not a peaceful year, to be certain. Obviously we still got the war going on and another one in Middle East, and not a really peaceful area in Asia Pacific as well. So let's have a look, let's rewind and refresh us how the migrations system had been in the past and been reforming every now and then until recently, and obviously including all the upcoming and the recent news as well. Now let's have a look at the first one. Is obviously we really need to go back to where the previous Labour governing period was back in 2009, and you may know Kevin Rudd is the ambassador of Australia in the USA at this point of time, and back then he was the prime minister. You can see the date of this news is back in 2009, which is what, 14 years ago. So I really wanted to give you a little bit of background on this one. So Kevin Rudd was the prime minister then, was coined the idea of big Australia. So he really looking forward to grow Australia to become a large populated nation. However, he ultimately he lost his prime ministerships due to of this idea and the coming of the coalition, so-called Liberal National Party altogether. So what happened back then with the Labour governments in Australia, the Labour government back then was there as governing body for about 9 years. Okay, and then the Liberal National was there for the 9 years as well. So 9 plus 9, that's 18 years. And then with the reason Labour came back, took the governing of Australia just last year. Whether or not Labour government will continue to rule for the next 8 years, it's question mark. I can't say a definite because they have just recently lost the referendum. We'll get to that. So then obviously the past, Kevin Rudd lost it, and then the coalition took place. It was Tony Abbott the first time, and then Malcolm Turnbull took over, still under the LNP, Liberal National Party. But in 2018, then the Minister of Home Affairs, Peter Dutton, had coined the idea to actually cut the annual immigration by 20,000. Now, in fact, what he had done was he actually canceled and rejected a lot of employer nominations and also the employer sponsored visa categories, and really took into control of changing. If you recall, I don't know, well, I don't think you will recall, but previously employment sponsored visa was so-called 457 and 187, and then they changed it to 482 visa, and also what we know today, the 494 and 191 visa. So that was the initiative back then. So cutting from 190,000 down to 170,000. Now 190,000 was set previously by the Canberra government, but they didn't really reach that level. But the coalition managed to get up to that level. So we're talking about that back in 2018. So obviously Scott Morrison, you probably know, the former Prime Minister, more the recent previous Prime Minister of Australia, in 2019 election, obviously the one that he actually won the election, took the control and capping the migration at 160,000 there. But we all learned what had happened was that's capping up the permanent residency intake, but they actually bumped it up for the temporary resident intake and create, as we know, if you follow my channel long enough, you probably can dig more information out from my previous video. There were 2 million, roughly, I believe, temporary resident visa holders in Australia. Well, not by not giving out the permanent residency, but still people being kept in Australia. Obviously, after 2019, we had hit 2020 where coronavirus, the pandemic came, and it was well known in April. I think he actually announced this in late March 2020 that Scott Morrison had asked all the migrants it's time to go home. Now, obviously, there were a lot of skilled migrants. Yeah, really took the advice, and bought the ticket and went home to every corner of the world. Now, what happened then was, obviously, we know, because we all have been through that 2 or 3 years, is a lack of skilled worker, a major shortage in Australia. Now, that was the fact. I think a lot of Australians had already forgot about that period of time. That as a nation, Australia, 6th largest continent in the world with only about 25 million people, really lack of economic power and productions where there's not enough of skilled migrants around. Whether or not you call that the encompassing of the local skills, or perhaps really it's a economy really requires the skilled migrants to be there. So that was the true fact back then, because a lot of people just went home, even till the point that there's not enough chefs or waiters. And until today, remember a couple weeks ago, we have seen the job and skills summary report. The top 20 shortage occupation was, one of was truck driver, the other one was waiter. Can you believe it? It's still the fact today, though. So you see how that had actually affected us. But political-wise, obviously, we're currently at the Labour government, which is more of a left-wing, and Scott Morrison and the Liberal National is more of a right-wing coalition. So they are more conservative. So they're arguing that too many migrants, right? So this has been going on for the past year or so. Now, moving on to 2022 May, obviously the Labour government won the election, and not just won the federal election, but they also won a lot of other state election as well. Now, and they had actually found out the issue about the skill shortage, and there's major backlog, 2 millions plus backlog, and some other millions of migrants there on the temporary, so-called permanent temporary visa holders, if you recall that, probably a lot of people had already forgot about those, those topics that have been talked about. And then they held a job and skills summit back in September last year, 2022, and obviously identified a lot of job shortage. And that was when the Labour government took control and announced that we really need to boost up and get more migrants into the country. Now, whether or not that was the right move or not, but political debating, obviously the opposition will always say something differently. Now, they actually found very good targeting point is the housing. Now, the housing issue caused a lot of problem, and which is the fact. But whether or not that was the true issue created by the migrants, or it's caused by the skill shortage during the COVID pandemic and resulted with the housing crisis, it's debatable. So it's a current issue. Obviously, the opposition party currently, the LNP, will throw all these problems towards the current government of Labour government. But we cannot just simply forget what had happened. And obviously, this is only a recent last year found out there's a shortage of skill shortage. And I don't believe today that shortage has already finished or have been resolved. So as you can see, this is October 4th, which is just this month's news article. They are still demanding jobs all around the country. And that why am I showing you this is basically the nation of Australia, in fact, whether or not politically debating each other or changing each other towards the upcoming elections, there's still shortage in demand there. And we go back to that's a skill and shortage summit, and obviously last month the current government had a major defeat on the referendum, which will obviously cause a lot of issue on the current governing party, Labour government in Australia. Now, probably another year, 12 months, or the maximum of 18 months. I can't because no one will know when they will call for the next election, but we'll be around 12 to 18 months down the track. The next federal elections will be vital, and how the Labour government will continue the trend where Liberal took about 12 years, and then Labour took about 9 years. I'm talking about the political rulings of the past, and also then the former the Scott Morrison's LNP took ruling about 9 years. Now, this current Labour government has only been there for 1 year. Are they going to continue to be there for another 8 years? Is questionable. Now, why am I saying that? Because the current world is not stable as what we have known in the previous 20 years. If you're looking at the current situation in Europe, in Middle East, and we have just been through a pandemic, which is it only comes once in every century. So a lot of changes that we are expecting to be coming. Now, how do I foresee what will happen? Really hard to say. If you looking into the political wise, the left wing and the right wings, seems to be the right wing is coming back, but there's so much elements coming to it, the religious issue, things between Jews, Muslims, and also the crashes between the US and China, tensions, South China Seas, and all that kind of thing, Pacifics, and the climate changes. There's just so many elements contributing towards how a nation will continue to grow and produce economically, and how, whether or not, if Labour continue to rule Australia, I think the current trend will continue, but there will be more quota or caps moving towards perhaps a protection visa, because if the war continues, there will be refugees, right? And the changes coming out of the skill migrations, employment sponsored visa, and if Liberal National Party does take back the control of as the governing body of Australia in the next elections, they will be more favorable towards the so-called the BIP, Business Innovation Investment Visa, and also more favorable on the global town. So again, if you look at the cultural sense, how the two party prefer policies in migration, generally the LNP is more towards building businesses. LNP is more building towards multiculturalism. So that is the true trend that we will foresee in the coming future. So that's basically what had caused us until today. So I just want to bring you a little bit of facts and information over the past. So perhaps you may juggle around, and nowadays people are choosing migration destination. It's gonna be a very hard choice nowadays, because it's not a settled world. And for Australia and Southern Hemisphere, perhaps is more a peaceful place to be to be settled there. If we're looking at North America or Europe, the inflation issue, the guns control issues, religious issue is more, more tensions in Northern Hemisphere. I'm not saying that Australia doesn't have those issues, but in a comparison wise, Australia is still better than other nations in Northern Hemisphere for family and living point of view. Anyways, if you have more question, query, more than welcome to leave comment right down below. And I'll see you next video. Goodbye.